Now to the United Kingdom, where there are new revelations of corruption at some of the highest levels of the media and police. A British tabloid newspaper owned by Rupert Murdoch is involved in a deepening mobile phone hacking scandal. We've known for a while that celebrities and politicians were targeted, but now it's been revealed that the news of the world has also hacked the phones of ordinary people inadvertently caught up in major news events, including victims of the 2007 London terrorist attacks and families of fallen British soldiers. Mark Lewis is a lawyer representing a number of people who've been hacked. His highest profile clients are the Dowler family. Their 13-year-old daughter Millie was murdered in 2002 and her voicemail was accessed by News of the World while she was missing. Mark Lewis joins me now from London. Mr Lewis, when did the Dowler family first learn that Millie's mobile phone had been hacked?
Well, they were notified in April this year, although Millie went missing in 2002 and was killed, unfortunately, sadly, in 2002. The police have probably been sat on these papers since 2006 when they arrested Glenn Mulcair, the inquiry agent, and Clive Goodman, the royal correspondent from the News of the World. And
when Millie was still missing, did the family know that the phone voicemail had been accessed?
No, they did not know. I mean, they thought that they were accessed perhaps by Millie, because what had happened was obviously voicemails. Everybody was calling Millie saying, you know, please phone home, please phone me. And of course, the voicemail box got full and the messages that were given out were, please try again later, the voicemails are full. And then, of course, they're not full anymore. It was actually someone else who'd been wiping them off, not Millie, but obviously family and friends got through and were able to leave messages and thought, well, Millie is still alive.
Because the messages were clearly being accessed by somebody. Do you believe that the hacking had an effect on the police investigation into Millie's disappearance?
Well, the police say that it didn't, but ultimately the police looked through every piece of evidence, and if they would have known that she wasn't accessing her messages, that must have helped them. So I think the answer must be yes, but that's really for the police to be able to say, and something that needs to be looked at.
And why, if the police knew in 2006, was the family only told in April just gone?
Again, you're going to have to ask the police that. You see, the original investigation was taking place under an Assistant Commissioner, Andrew Heyman. Andy Heyman said not a stone was left unturned, but that just clearly wasn't the case. There were so many people who weren't notified by the police. There's now a current Operation Wheating, under Assistant Commissioner Sue Akers, which is notifying people. It has 45 officers investigating these things, and they're still working through the documentation. But in 2006, Andy Heyman said this had all been looked at. Andy Heyman then went to work for The Times. He wrote an article for the News of the World, the newspaper that was investigated. It was published in there saying not a stone had been left unturned. There's something wrong in the situation that the police officer who undertakes an investigation then goes and writes for the people that he was investigating, saying it was a proper investigation.
And what has been the impact on the family of learning this in the past few months?
Well, the family have had to go through very recently the trial of the person who killed their daughter, and if that wasn't bad enough, and the things that were going through, they were in the middle of that trial, and they get notified about the fact that they've been let down by the press as well. The News of the World and the inquiry agent Glenn Mulcair had been hacking into their phone. To be told that when they're going through all the stress, absolutely distressing. I wonder how the family could actually take this. It's just one thing upon another, relentless pressure, relentless sadness.
The Dowlers are your highest profile clients. You have some others as well. What action will you be taking on their behalf against News International?
Well, they'll be suing News Group newspapers, a subsidiary of News International, and Glenn Mulcair, the inquiry agent, for damages. But obviously, no amount of money is ever going to bring back Millie, and no amount of damages is ever going to compensate things. This is why we're saying that civil claims will not get to the bottom of this, and any criminal allegations that made people plead guilty or whatever. There needs to be a judge-led public inquiry to find out the truth of what's been happening.
And so David Cameron has said there will be a public inquiry. Do you think that without having it led by a judge, it won't be able to get fully to the bottom of these issues? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think we've got to be very careful to look at what David Cameron has said. He's not committed himself to a full public inquiry. the position is said there's got to be an inquiry, but that could be a select committee looking at it in Parliament. This has to be a full-scale public inquiry under what's called the 2005 Act, led by a judge with the powers to question people, to subpoena people. People like Rebecca Brooks, who's now the managing director of News International, who was editor of the News of the World at the time of the Dowler situation, need to be called to give evidence. So far, she's not been able to be forced to give evidence.
There are reports that News International has offered the latest victims £100,000 each. We know they've already reached settlements with people like Sienna Miller, the actress. How great could the company's liability be?
Well, we still don't know exactly how many are, but potentially the financial damage could exceed 100 million, possibly more, in terms of and not including the cost of advertisers who are pulling out their advertising all the time in protest. I mean, what we see actually is the tables being turned. There's now a News of the World style campaign against the News of the World itself, where people are protesting against the News of the World for what it's doing. Glenn Mulcair, the investigator who was hacking into phones and therefore going against people's privacy, yesterday issued a statement asking for his privacy to be respected. Both parties, Glenn Mulcair and the News of the World, seem to have been on the other side now.
Previously, the hacking scandal was thought to affect celebrities and politicians, and of course now we know it has also reached into the lives of ordinary people. How much has that fuelled this public protest against the News of the World?
Well, I think we've got to be very careful, because it's always been about public people, not just celebrities and sports people and politicians. But of course the newspapers have been reluctant to report this, because obviously it has reached out to the general population and have now realised how significant it was. But the news that they were getting, it was being dressed up, well, this is just celebrities, and they're celebrities who, whilst they shouldn't have perhaps been hacked, they deserve it in a way because they caught publicity. And that's just not the truth. We now have to look at every story that's being written, and stories aren't just written about celebrities, but about all sorts of people and about all sorts of tragic events, and to find out how those stories were got and how the intrusion took place into people's lives.
Mark Lewis, thank you very much for making time to speak to us today.
Thank you.